I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. We have a special guest one day early, but we'll talk about that special guest in a little bit. Anyway, folks, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning, Texas. Good morning, the United States of America. And of course, good morning to whom? The world. How is everybody doing? We are going to have a great show today. But before we even start, it is a must that we transfer to the geniuses that have turned tin cans and strings into something that transmit 100,000 watts throughout the country and over the internet. Hey, geniuses, how are my favorite peeps doing?
100,000 watts across America. This is KPFT Houston. There you go.
Oh,
How about that?
wow. Hey, you know what?
That's my announcer voice.
I can't wait to listen to your show on Friday, man. That
Oh
voice
Lord,
was like to die for.
it
Right,
is going to
Neil?
be huge. It's going to be a huge train wreck.
That was excellent. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Coast to coast.
It
absolutely the worst show you've ever heard in your life.
Oh,
Nah,
come
it's
on.
gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Oh, we're doing okay this morning. Let's see, Jack, you got some wisdom for us?
Yeah, this is real simple this morning. I hope y'all get this. The agents of chaos have taken over control.
Yes, we need Maxwell Smart now more than ever.
He's trapped in the KPFT studios.
His phone doesn't work because his shoe won't untie.
His shoe is wet.
Yeah, that's it. So is everything else out there. All righty. We'll turn it back over to Egberto before we hijack his show.
Well, I mean, you guys are entitled to hijack the show because it's your show as well. Anyway, folks, we are going to have a great show for you today. Title of the show: Aquino on local elections. A Medicare Advantage per salesperson speaks. Nonprofit hospitals. The Republican Revolution devours its children. More than likely, we may, if we're lucky, we get to two of the subjects. But remember, folks, all the subjects are covered in our newsletter. So go to politicsandright.com/newsletter, where you can see this all enumerated just fine, including the letter, the long letter that I received from that salesperson who said, Medicare Advantage, I used to sell that stuff. I even was on that stuff. Folks, whenever we talk about this stuff on Medicare Advantage and what it's really about, we are not lying to you. We're not trying to tell you, steer you wrong or whatever. There was a time that I would tell folks, well, you need to make up your mind, etc., etc. My non-professional advice. I can't give advice as a KPFT host. I can't give advice as a professional healthcare advocate or anything like that. But I can tell you, I would never allow a ripoff to rip me off, and that is what Medicare Advantage is. Don't let anybody fool you otherwise. And if you're doing well on it now, that is great. If that is all you can afford, it is understandable. But if at all you can move on, we'll talk about that later on. Anyway, the subtitle of the show, of course, based on what we just spoke about, and if my mouse will start back working, it'll be great that I can scroll up. Neil Aquino discusses a few upcoming elections, including why is a certain person running, including why is the attorney general trying to attack someone that is actually a pretty good person. Medicare Advantage salesperson comes clean. Barney Sanders exposes nonprofit hospitals as a ripoff, and the Republican Revolution devours its children. A party that talks about I support life. We support life. We want the sanctity of life. What life are we talking about? I don't know. Maybe you can inform us. Maybe you can tell us what's going on there. Anyway, folks, there are several ways to listen to us. Of course, on the dial, go to 90.1 FM. On that good old dial, go download the TuneIn application from the Android store, called the Play Store or the Apple Store, and search for KPFT and listen to us there. You can go to our website, kpft.org, kpft.org, hit the listen button, and you can listen to us while you are over there. Please remember that, go ahead and start our fund drive early. Go ahead and donate whatever you can to make sure we can stay on air. just click that button and donate. Remember to select Politics Done Right that you're donated in our name. Money doesn't come to me, it all goes to KPFT. This is all my part, a completely and entirely volunteer ordeal. You can watch us live, including the handsome face of Neil Aquino at facebook.com/KPFT Houston, facebook.com/KPFT Houston. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to politicsandright.tv. Politicsandright.tv. All our podcasts are found at politicsandright.com/podcast, including the audio of these clips that we do on the show almost daily. Anyway, folks, welcome Neil Aquino. Once again, you're here one day early. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Egberto. Thank you for having me, and good morning, everyone listening across the earth.
Yeah, I got, every time you're coming on a show, you send me a little snippet of what you intend to discuss, and when I read your blog, the first thing I said is wow. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your concerns with respect to Anne?
Great. So this is part of the Houston Democracy Project blog, and that's what I'm here each week, the Houston Democracy Project. You can Google it, Houston Democracy Project. It'll come up, neilaquino.com. And we're seeking to make democracy an issue in Houston 2023 politics and to inspire, organize, and strengthen pro-democracy coalitions in Houston and Harris County. So I have a daily blog, and one of the things I've written about is my state representative, Ann Johnson, District 134, and she is a Democrat. And Ann is a decent person. I think she's honest, smart, tough-minded. She's very connected to the local political establishment. I wish she was less so, but and someone who wants bipartisan to succeed. And when I've talked bipartisanship to succeed, and I've talked to Ann a few times and seen her speak at Democratic Party functions, and I know she's also concerned about threats to democracy in Texas and the nation. And what I think a way to sum up Ann is she balances her concerns. Our politics are off the rails with belief that operating competently and honestly within conventional channels will lead to outcomes that preserve our politics. I'm not sure she's correct, but that's what she wants to believe, and many do. And in many ways, it would be better if she was correct. So Ann was one of the 12 House managers, 12 representatives in the Texas House of Representatives, who led the recent effort to impeach Ken Paxton. The Senate kept Paxton in office, at part it seemed with some of that corrupt far-right Wilkes and Dunn money. And after the trial ended, the impeachment managers released additional documents pertaining to the trial. Attorney General Paxton said that some of the documents they released violated a Texas law. I guess his address and stuff was in it, even though his address had long been public record. So Paxton says he's filing a criminal complaint against the 12 impeachment managers. So this corrupt dude is filing criminal complaints in the home counties. And of course, our DA is Kim Ogg. We've talked about her before. So you don't know what she'll do. She's the one who's been hassling Lena and Lena's staff. So one thing that struck me is Ann is this total establishment, moderate, quote unquote, reasonable as others define it. She could be a little less moderate, frankly, and she'd be okay. It's a 60% Biden district, but still they come after her. Still, she does everything by the book, and still they come after her. And it reminded me, even though it might seem from a distance not connected, the indictments that we've seen in Georgia for the Cop City protesters, the giant police training facility, where the state of Georgia is seeking to prosecute people who took part in bail funds or who in some parts just expressed anti-police sentiment at Cop City rallies. And the connection between the two, between these folks who seemingly weren't doing anything that would bring a prosecution, they were just taking part in bail funds to free others who'd been arrested, is that you have officials like Mr. Paxton with little concern for democracy who will expand the reach of selective interpretations of the law to harass and imprison people, and that this extended authoritarian reach might be applied to a protester or it might be applied to an opposition party elected official. And so we have to be cognizant that nobody is safe. We need to look out for each other, act with courage and imagination, and understand that seemingly disparate things are connected, and that as we have corrupt, and imagine Ken Paxton in a second Trump Justice Department. Imagine him appointed there, or imagine the two of them presiding over us. So I wanted to highlight Ann as this super moderate person still facing attacks. And I want to remind Ann and establishment actors like Ann that your fate is not distant from that of protesters who you publicly might not really want to be identified with.
That is ironic because I think you nailed it right there. In other words, a lot of politicians who attempt to play the role of a moderate, or they try to stay away from the activists, those of us that are really trying to make effective change for the population at large. They think that by taking that stance and keeping many of us at bay, at arm's length, that somehow they'll be able to get these things through. In other words, yeah, we want to talk to you, but don't make it so obvious that we're talking to you so that we can get things done. That's not how it works. It's
Right.
better to have the support of the masses than the support of your colleagues, because eventually the support of the masses usurps the support of your colleagues, because eventually those colleagues will be voted out if your support of the masses are sufficiently large, which is what we are striving for when with the kind of activism that we do. Folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. Please give us a call. Please don't wait till the end of the show to call, because again, we then have to kind of show you on rather quickly. 713-526-5738. If you have questions for Neil, or you want to change the subject, or you want to discuss something, if you want to add something to the conversation, go ahead and call us now. This is your show, and we want you to participate. Telephone number 713-526-5738. Hit extension number 2, and you will be on immediately. Neil, you had a second subject that you wanted to talk about with regards to the mayor's race and some implications thereof.
Right, and I like how you phrase that. Keep at arm's length, because that's really the case. That is the case. You will have conversations where they'll talk to you privately and agree with you, but Ann is someone just in her 40s. She's married to her wife. There's a lot at stake for her, and she may well need us as much or more than we need her as these things
Right.
continue.
So well, you know what? I tell our politicians that all the time. Whenever I talk to them, I remind them. In fact, I was at not to interrupt too much, but I was at a meeting a meeting a couple of days ago, and that's what I told one of them. I reminded them. I reminded them that there would have been no Lina Hidalgo absent those who were true progressives beating the pavement for somebody that nobody knew, for somebody to beat a stalwart that was Emmett, or Emmett.
Ed Emmett.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember the machinations that was gone through to get her elected.
Right, that's right, and they come at her relentlessly.
Yeah, because
they come at her
they never
relentlessly.
thought
and
they never thought the grassroots was going to be able to do it.
That's right. That's exactly what that campaign. That's exactly right. So there's been a new poll, the Hobby School of Public Affairs. That's the University of Houston, and it's a poll on the mayoral race and also the controller's race and a few of the issues on the ballot here in Houston and Harris County. The hospital bond. People want the hospital bond, it seems. That's good news. That's a Harris County issue. So for the mayoral race, in the first round, John Whitmire is at 34 and Sheila Jackson Lee is at 31. That's the first round. And I want you to think about that, because turnout is probably going to be 26%. So here's Whitmire. Right. So here's Whitmire, who's been in office for 50 years. So 34% of the 27% or 26% who are going to vote want this guy. So he's been in, they give him, the dean, all this pompous stuff they talk around this dude. Only 8 or 9% of Houstonians want this guy for mayor. That's it. And then Sheila Jackson Lee is second. So here's someone else. She's been in office forever. She was on city council and I believe was a judge before she went to Congress. She's at 31%. So just think about these two folks have 85 years in office or whatever it is, and they still can barely muster a crowd. They can still barely muster a crowd. We genuflect to these folks, and they can still barely muster a crowd. So then in the runoff, so you have to get to 50%, or there's a runoff. Vote in the runoff, Whitmire 50, Sheila Jackson Lee 36. And that mirrors a poll that Hobby did at the beginning of August, where Whitmire was at 52, 53, whatever it was. And one of the things that's in the poll is that a substantial number of the public will never, 53% of undecided voters said they would never vote for Sheila Jackson Lee. Never. And one thing that's frustrating to me is whether it's fair to me, whether it's fair or not, and I think there's a racial component to this. I don't have any doubt. But whether it's fair or not, those high negatives for Congresswoman Jackson Lee, they've always been out there. And she forced Amanda Edwards and Chris Hollins out of the race. Amanda Edwards is now running for Congress, Sheila Jackson Lee's seat. Chris Hollins is running for controller. He has the lead in the poll, although most people don't know who's running for controller. And she forced them out. She's had a quarter century to build a political machine. We saw from the first numbers, there's no widespread support for her. These Democratic incumbents in safe seats don't do anything to build turnout. Don't over the years, they see a primary challenger if the wind blows. They don't build a political operation. Now they need the votes. They have no reservoir of goodwill. And Whitmire is leading among Republicans 82% to 1%. Here's what it says. Whitmire is the favorite candidate among Republicans in a runoff with an 82 to 1% advantage over Jackson Lee, with Jackson Lee leading among Democrats 59-29. So these folks, to use a line you used with me earlier this morning when we were talking, think the world revolves around them. They get in, they expel this young talent, and Amanda Edwards, anything I go to, Amanda Edwards is there, okay? I could have a birthday party for my dog, and Amanda Edwards would show up. And here's Congresswoman Jackson Lee, and with all of these negatives, and we seem to be putting in this 70-something conservative as could be Democrat with close ties to Republicans like Dan Patrick, who are taking Nazi money in essence, and we're handing it off to them. And it's deeply frustrating. What's done is done. But Sheila Jackson Lee, you break, you buy, to use the Colin Powell line.
Yeah.
And she came in and did this, and she has an obligation to really work it.
We'll see what happens in the race. Well, let's go ahead and go to Gonzalo. Come on in, Gonzalo. All right. I think Gonzalo will be. There we go. Gonzalo, come on in.
Okay. Good morning, Victor. How are you?
Good morning, Gonzalo. I haven't heard from you in a while. Were you out of town?
Kind of, but I have been listening to your program. Sometimes I don't have enough to say, so I prefer that other people like Johnny, the major, and another guy who takes the bus. I don't know his name. He had an interesting conversation yesterday, so I enjoyed the show. Yes.
Well, good. That's a very considerate caller. Anyway, what are you? Let me know what you want to talk about, my brother.
Yeah, about the political agenda of the candidates. I haven't been reading much about them, but what all I hear is the same thing. Crime, violence. We're gonna please the scenario, the Houston area. That's the Republican side, and on the Democratic side, infrastructure, whatever. I don't hear anything about public transit. I don't hear anything about expansion of the rail. I don't hear anything about reducing the amount of cars on the highway that is every day more, and we can see the traffic increasingly crazy, especially at rush hours. So it seems to be that we're not in a developed country. We are in a third world country, run by car dealerships and people that only think about trucks that consume a lot of gas. And I'm wondering if people realize that we have a climate change threat that we need to deal with. And I've talked to people in the past, for example, the West Park Tollway. It used to be a railroad. What do? They dismantle the railroad, and instead they make that useless tollway. Because I call it useless because if you drive during rush hour, you can see people bumper to bumper paying $250 or more to get to Katy and remote areas. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Let me tell you, Gonzalo, first of all, you mentioned a lot of smart stuff there. And I think that alludes to what Neil was talking about. We need young people with a different view because these older folks, they're stuck in the age of dinosaurs where they don't really think about progress, which is what progressives stand for, progress. But I'll let Neil tackle that.
Right, that's a great smart call, and there's so many good points. Let me get to two. Mentioning different forms of transportation. Gilbert Garcia running for mayor, just to show you how retrograde this stuff all is. Gilbert Garcia running for mayor was head of Metro at one point, and one of his issues has been being against bike lanes. He's been complaining about the bike lanes. So we've got a guy actually who should know this stuff up and down and be talking about forward stuff. And he's complaining about bike lanes as head of Metro. And then on climate change along the same theme. So we have a transportation guy who's complaining about bike lanes. For climate change, Casey Curry is running for at-large 3. She's a former meteorologist at Channel 13. She's a Democrat who won't mention climate change. She talks, you go to your website, talks about flooding, resiliency. I've seen her speak about 5 times, and she will never mention the word climate change. So she says, I'm a meteorologist. I know the facts, science, blah, blah, blah. So to amplify the caller, even when they talk about these things, people who are experts in transportation, people who are experts in the climate, Democrats, not only won't they talk about it, they'll take retrograde backwards positions about it to speak to the caller's friend.
I want to say this, which I think adds to what you're saying, Neil, and that is they all, first of all, disrespect the population, and they go to the lowest common denominator. In other words, in order to win that lowest common denominator, instead of saying, I am going to educate, I'm going to go into the communities and say, hey, this is why this will make life better for you. They simply say it's easier to just look silly, look dumb. And you really sit down and wonder, that's not what leadership is. Leadership is, yes, listening to your audience, but as well, when there is room to inform, to do so. Gonzalo, give me a last sentence so I can go to Arnold.
Yeah, I think we need also a compromise because it's not in order to get a compromise, we need to get a win-win situation. And let's say, this is just something silly. I'm not an engineer, but let's say instead of the loops, 99, Beltway 8, and probably it's going to be a third one after 99. So let's say, okay, is that infrastructure capable of carrying a load of a rail or a fast-speed train? And last but not least, I haven't heard anything about the fast train between Houston and Dallas. It seems to me that is a crazy idea for Republicans who are in power. That needs to be done.
I agree. But the airline. Sorry, Gonzalo, I want to go to Arnold, but the airline industry, I can guarantee you, they don't want that because it's going to kill Southwest traffic between Dallas and Houston. Anyway, Gonzalo, muchas gracias por la llamada. Como siempre, tienes a lot to talk about. All right, my brother?
All right. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
You
Thank
too,
you,
sir. All right.
Thank you.
Let's go to Arnold. Come on in, Arnold.
Hey, how's it going, Berto?
I'm doing fine. Talk to me, my brother.
Yeah, same scenario as your buddy before just said. Uh, Gonzalo, man, I used
Oh, you're breaking up. Hey, Arnold, call back because you kind of broke up. We lost you, so give us a call back. Let's go to Art.
Hey, how's it going? Good morning.
I'm doing fine, Art. Arnold, call us back. We'd like to hear from you. Go ahead, Art.
Sure. Two things. One, the mass transit that Gonzalo was talking about, man, that's super important. I think Metro's handling it the best they can, but we still need more mass transit. The super, what is it, bullet train or whatever it is that he
Yeah,
brought
from
up, the
yeah,
transit.
from Dallas to Houston.
Yeah. Is it just Dallas? I thought it was Dallas, Houston, Galveston. Like they're supposed to do a triangle.
No,
I'm
no,
not
you're
sure.
right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to do it. I mean, we got to go on that. This is why Houston won't ever get the Olympics or the World Cup, because the Eastern European countries, they're used to mass transit. Even people in the East Coast, Chicago, Baltimore, New York, they need mass transit. When they come here and they see all these cars and one person in a big old 4x4, doesn't make sense. So we'll never get those, the Olympics or World Cup. But yeah, we definitely got to put more money. Anyway, that's not my original point. Gonzalo covered most of it. The mayor race. Sheila Jackson Lee, I think why a lot of people don't like her, I don't think it has much to do with race. I think it has to do more with and John Whitmore, is that they're career politicians. The same people that call for term limits don't want either of them to be mayor, because they've already established their connections and whatnot. And yeah, there's benefit if they become a mayor and they come here, they can bring those connections and maybe get some things done. But that's what I feel, is that there's more opposition to these candidates because they're career politicians. We need someone fresh, younger, that has better, new ideas. That's my take on it. And Sheila Jackson Lee, I haven't heard from her until I think this past Saturday, and she was on Morning Makers on Channel 2. That was the first time I heard on anything. I don't know. Maybe she feels she already has it in the bag. The big Democratic, conglomerate is, they said, don't even worry about, hitting the field. We'll get you in. I'm not sure. I was just my observation.
Well, Neil brought a poll in today, Art. Neil brought a poll in today, Art, that says other. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to speak over you. I think we may have a slight delay. But Neil brought a poll that says otherwise. And look, I don't like term limits. I think that the public should decide. But for those who like term limit, I'm not gonna, I will vote my way if term limits wins, so be it. Now that said, I think you nailed it, Art. Uh, you know, the people are tired of the career politicians. Your thoughts on this, Neil?
So Art makes a great point. I think people are tired of the career politicians, and that gets up to what we were saying earlier, that they've had years to help organize and strengthen the public, and they haven't done it. It's all about them. With the racial component about Sheila Jackson Lee, I think Art's point is great, that people are just tired of them. And Sheila Jackson Lee has been more visible on TV than John Whitmire. She's a congressperson. He's been a state senator. But I'd also say in Houston mayoral elections, for example, 8 years ago, Mayor Turner beat the Republican Bill King only 51-49. And this is in a city that was voting strongly for Obama, strongly for Hillary Clinton. And you just got to wonder, there's no reason on earth to vote for Hillary, to vote for Obama, to vote for Biden, and then to turn around and vote for a Republican in a mayoral race. So some of it has to do with who shows up in city elections, which is an older, whiter, more conservative crowd. But then I think there is a racial component where there are segments of the population that, when it's closer to home, go towards the more conservative or the whiter candidate. So that's an aspect of it. Our Art's point that the people are just tired of the same people is also an excellent point.
Yeah, and I agree. There is a certain percentage that will be racial. Go ahead, Art.
Oh no, I was agreeing. Yeah, I believe there's a segment that doesn't want, a black person to be mayor or a female or whatever the case. I'm sure that's
Right.
there. I feel it's more of the career politician deal.
And I think I think you're right there. I honestly think, Art, you're right. In other words, you're saying that that is a higher burden that people like Sheila or a female candidate has to get over. It's that, yes, race may have a small component, but it's most of that. And I think I agree with that. Just given who we've elected as mayors before. I mean, we've had women mayors, we've had gay mayors, we've had black mayors, we've had, so I mean, Houston has proved itself, with all its problems, to be one of the most cosmopolitan and fair cities there is around. So I'm with you there, Art. Anyway, Art, I need to go to Arnold, who we lost a few minutes ago. Okay,
Sure.
go ahead.
Just in closing real quick is like, if you're registered, I know it's already late, but make sure you go out there. A lot of us have younger nieces and nephews and cousins or whatever. Get them out there, take them with you, pay them $5, say you're going to stop at Starbucks, whatever, just to get them out.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, have a good one.
All right, Art, as usual, good info. Thank you, my brother. Let's go to Arnold. Come on in, Arnold.
Hey, Murdo, thanks. So what I was going over was basically, like Gonzalo was saying, let other people talk, as far as the mayor, KPFT or whatnot. But what I wanted to go over was basically everything Gonzalo was saying. I mean, you could say all that. You could put that as union work. Where is everything that Gonzalo was saying as far as the infrastructure could be union work. What we voted in on all these bonds not too long ago, didn't we? As far as to increase some bonds so that the city could start purchasing property, whatever it said, right?
Yes.
As far as for the animal control as well, everything. I think every proposition or whatever that was put out there this last election, I think everything was in favor for, correct?
Yes. I mean, I tell you what we're going to do, Arnold, what we're going to do, because there are a lot of amendments to the Constitution, propositions that are going out there. We're going to have a list of them. I don't remember the particular one that I have.
I'm
Go
just
ahead.
talking about locally, here locally. I'm sorry, locally. The last election with Lena Hidalgo and everything. Everybody voted on these propositions for like I said, for the fire department, for the police department, for the animals,
Yes.
For state. We voted on all of those. So everything that is going to be built with all that money needs to be union work, is what I'm saying. How do we get that? How do we make? Who do we vote in so that we make that happen? You understand? So
I get you perfectly. I get you.
Jackson Lee and she hasn't done that for us, especially not in Houston, because union representation in Houston is zero, is minimum, 5%. Maybe.
Okay, so I think if I understand you correctly, Arnold, you're calling about, okay, we have the monies there, so let's make sure that the labor force that fulfills the build out of that money is union based. You're right. And what I tell you to do is, the fact that you're calling in and talking about that and making the population at large aware, what we need to do in these next these few weeks towards this next election going out there, is to make sure to get the commitment from these politicians that yes, in fact, they will be supporting these jobs done by union shops. We contract out a lot of work that Houston does we need to make sure that the work that is contracted goes to unions and not to somebody just hiring a whole bunch of people to make a big profit on what we've all voted for. So, Arnold, I'm with you. Thank you so kindly for your calls. Give me one last closer so I can go to Bart.
One more thing, real quick. You had talked about entrepreneurs making all this money and this and that. You know, you know, they got to make that money so that I don't know, you and the other guy on the program, Steve, I believe, we're talking about it's an incentive for them to make things happen. Oh, I make things happen every day. Us workers make things happen every day, and we want to see some of that.
Okay, wait a minute. I hope you're talking about things that I say, because let me just tell you, Arnold, I have no problem about for entrepreneurs making money, but if you listen to if you listen to everything I talk about, if you read everything I write, it's all about the entrepreneur is one stakeholder, and the other major stakeholder is in fact the worker, and the entrepreneur can't make a profit if the worker isn't there, and therefore they should partake in it all. So, Arnold, we're on the same wavelength. I don't know if you hadn't gotten that from when I've been on Steve's show to talk about that, but that's where I'm at. Arnold, I got to go to Bard, but thank you so kindly for calling, and know that we're listening to you, sir. All right? Let's go to Bart. Come on in, Bart.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to encourage all your listeners, including Art and Arnold, to vote for John Whitmire. He's a good Democrat, and he supports the unions and the infrastructure, and he's against crime, and he's worked well with Governor Abbott. So he's got that direct connection to him, you know, and he can get Abbott straightened out and on the right track, you know. So I just want to encourage everyone to vote for John Whitmire, because that Sheila Jackson Lee, she's just a career corrupt politician out of Washington, and all she cares about is getting in front of the camera. You know what I mean?
I'll let Neil answer that. But I mean, look, this is all our channels, right? So you have a right for your choices, and I support your right to do that. This is what we're all about. But go ahead, Neil, if you want to address what he said.
Great. So thank you for the call. In terms of unions are divided. The Gulf Coast AFL supports the Gulf Coast AFL-CIO Labor Council supports Whitmire. The teachers union, the Communication Workers of America, support Sheila Jackson Lee. So we've talked about unions a little bit the last couple of calls. There are divided thoughts among our union. Terms the caller said against crime, and very appreciative of the caller and coming and advocating for his candidate. I just point out they're all against crime. We use these terms, you know, we're saturated with these crime messages, and no one's for crime. And Congresswoman Jackson Lee is not for crime. For the last point about straightening Governor Abbott out, so that's a great point. And so Senator Whitmire offers us this deal. He says, I know these Republicans. I know Governor Abbott. I know Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and I'm going to straighten them out. But that hasn't worked. It didn't work with the trans legislation, didn't work with taking over our voting. It hasn't worked with, you know, getting our money from the land office for Hurricane Harvey. That's the thing. If Senator Whitmire could really deliver these outcomes, hey, I'm moderating Dan Patrick. Hey, I'm moderating Greg Abbott. Look at this record. But he hasn't been able to do that. And so he's been advocating that the Department of Public Safety state troopers come into town, like Mayor Watson, another older conservative Democrat in Austin, wanted these police. Then he wanted to get rid of them. And Abbott said no. So Kirk Watson wasn't able. So let's take Whitmire, a completely good faith. It's a reasonable proposition he offers, but the record's not there. And there's no reason to believe that he can restrain these anti-democratic Republicans once in office. The record isn't showing that.
Thank you very much. And Neil, I need to go ahead and tell folks welcome Carol Sanders, welcome Eric Hayes, welcome. Hold on a second, Bart. Welcome Paul Fleming Sr. Welcome all of you in the chat. Note that we read them, and thank you for being here. Okay, Bart, you got to give me a quick closer.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to we got two choices, Sheila Jackson Lee or John Whitmire. And to me, it's obvious that Whitmire is the better choice of these two because he's more local. He'll work better with the county. And that's what we need, somebody that's going to work with the county and the state.
Bart, thank you very much. Bart, Bart, I do appreciate your call. I ask you also to listen to what Neil says. Neil comes down with, one of the things that we always believe in is actions speak louder than words. In other words, you say you're going to do something. How has it been done thus far? Look at the record. Very important. Thank you so kindly, Bart. Keep calling, keep listening, my brother. Let's go to Melissa. Melissa, come on in, Melissa.
Good morning, Houston. Oh, man. I only had a question.
Go ahead, my friend.
Talk about the ramifications of someone made a point, and I'm chiming in on the switching parties. So I wanted Neil to give the audience another rule of, what's the rules when you switch party and you go in to vote, this election. That was what I called for. But then the, other caller is coming on to say, we need another guy to get another guy straight. That don't make no sense. And, and if that's what he's running on, put me in so I can straighten him out. That totally doesn't make any sense. That really now makes me question and makes him suck. He sucks to me now. And then the whole game, criminal. Let's get tough on crime. That sounds like to me wrap all the black people up again. So you're giving me anxiety, sir, and I'm definitely not voting for Whitmire. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much, Melissa. And I'll, before I go to Diane, I'll let Neil comment about the party change. Thank you so kindly for calling. As usual, my dear lady. Go ahead, Neil, real quick.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Very quickly. Well, just say that municipal elections are technically nonpartisan. So there's no party, no primary, you just go in and vote. There's the general election day. If the candidates don't get to 50%, then there's a runoff. They're not really nonpartisan, certainly from the Republicans, and I don't think Democrats should treat it that way. But these are technically nonpartisan races.
Thank you very much, Neil. Let's go to Diane. Come on in, Diane.
Good morning. I'm a voice from your past. I haven't found your program for like 2 years, and this is my first time to find it.
Thank you, Diane, for finding it.
I've just been underwater for a couple of years, I guess. But I've got to tell you have to vote. You have to vote. You can look at John Whitmire with exploiting his robbery when his daughter was 9 years old as part of his campaign commercial. That's when you're showing when you're throwing red meat at your people. People like to trash Sheila Jackson Lee. We have to have a strong leader for our city. And right now, I do not live in Harris County, and it's driving me up the wall because I can't vote in this election. And I get these people that don't even want to vote, that they don't care. And my point, and I'm going to make it brief because I haven't been on the air for a while anywhere, voting. Get your younger neighbors, get your cousins, get your nieces, get your nephews, get them in the habit of going to the polls. Be a poll worker, volunteer. You've got to make it a culture of voting in your personal community, because that's the only way that we are going to win this state back from what's in Austin right now.
Diane, I want to commend you. I want to commend you on a statement you made. And I think Howard is likely going to, not Howard is going to likely love it. He loves it. The culture of voting. That is exactly what we need. The culture of voting. I love the way you said that. And that is what we have to have, not only here in Harris County, but everywhere else in this country to really take the country to the people who really own it.
And I just thought, as a codicil to that, I am also a member of the Cherokee Nation. My aunt, who had 6 children, had a full-time job. She was at every single election. She was the precinct chair. She would set it up in her barn on her farm. And every time she saw any of her 2 sisters' kids, we were like, it's like you just didn't think about not voting once you turned 18.
Right.
Her kids would go, they would go be sitting there in their little car seat, their stroller, while she was working the polls when she had, little, because she had, because it has to be, like, I think it's culture of voting, and I don't even know where that phrase dropped from, but I've never actually verbalized that before. But
well, you sure? I got to go to the other caller, Diane. But let me just tell you that phrase is a very important phrase, and I'll start using that phrase, and I'll credit you, the culture of voting. Diane, thank you so kindly for calling.
You made a difference today. So thank you.
Thank you. You have a wonderful day, Dan. Let's go to Ray. Ray is recovering. Ray, I hope you're feeling better. I'm assuming this is Ray that I think it is. My Ray from Third Ward.
Yeah.
Ray, how you doing this morning? I know you were under the weather. Are you okay now?
Yeah, I'm going through it, but I'm feeling better. So, really quick, I wanted to highlight what Diane said. Thank you for sharing that. We need a culture of voting, and to Neil, like what you said about, the difference in the polls between John Whitmire and Sheila Jackson Lee is nothing but disturbing to me, because, Houston has a large Democratic base that should be, on the progressive side. But I'm hearing a lot of your callers, and I'm hearing the tone of some of your callers that, unfortunately strongly support Whitmire. And I feel like they come from that part of our society that just doesn't see it for, I'm just going to say it, a black candidate, a woman. I don't look at the Washington politics aspect of it so much, but they use that as a basically a scapegoat to say, well, I don't support this candidate because she's a Washington insider, yada, yada, yada. If you know anything about city politics, you would want that and look at that as an asset, because most municipalities rely on federal funds to be able to make up the difference in their budget. So if you care anything about a city budget, you would want to have someone who has direct ties to Washington, because they can get the federal money to the city better than someone like a Whitmire. Just because he has the state, pull, that doesn't mean anything. Just because he knows or maybe has a relationship with Abbott doesn't mean it's going to be an asset. It just means he knows him. And like y'all were saying, he's a Democrat, but he's historically voted with and supported Republican legislators.
But Ray, he has never. Lee, I think Neil pointed out perfectly, and Neil enumerated it perfectly. He has been unsuccessful. He claims that voting him into office will give him the leverage to get Republicans to do the right things. Republicans have done all the wrong things for Harris County. Okay, and that's a statement of fact, and Neil made that clear. But look, I have to take, I try not to get into the conversation as far as voting, but with this one, with all of them, I'm going to eventually take an exception. I'll take my host hat off. I can't look. It is time for, first of all, I want women more engaged in our politics, because I think more than ever we need women engaged in our politics, and I'm talking about heading our politics, and that is a statement that I make based out of experience. Women in the aggregate simply governs better. Texas wasn't better governed than when we had. Gosh, it just slipped me. Who was our woman governor? And there's a reason why.
Niece Parker.
No, no, I'm not talking about our mayor, our governor of
And
Texas.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, the governor of Texas
Richard,
that we had, Ann
Richard
Richards,
and
and then
Richards and Richards and Richards, great governor. And again, this is a. I'm saying that right now in
I know
our
the history
history,
of Ann Richards.
right, right now in our history, we need a change from the testosterone-driven type of governing to a more inclusive governing. And until men relearn that item, I think we need to have a bigger influx of women in our body politic. That's just my statement. But Ray, I need to jump to Johnny after you make a closing statement.
Yeah, basically, I just need to say he's not a Democrat. He's a Democrat in name only. He is a Dixiecrat, and if we get him in the mayor office, we're going to have a police state like you wouldn't believe, and that's what scares me because he doesn't even believe that we should have air conditioning in the prisons because that's a luxury. But
It's
I'll leave on
shameful.
that. Okay,
That's inhumane. That's inhumane and shameful. And I think there's something to what you're saying here. I am tired of people looking at our crime rate has gone up, but to look at to sit here and try to imply that Houston is a crime driven city, it's crazy. Houston is a humongous city. 3 million people, 3+ million people. It's bigger than the original country that I'm from. If you compare the crime in my country to what you see in Houston with 3 million people, it's a joke. When we try to make crime an issue in many cities, I mean, look, if you are the victim of crime, it's a problem. If you see a doubling in crime, it's a problem. But a doubling of a very small amount is a small amount. And I'm not trying to discount crime. I'm trying to say there are so many other issues we need to tackle. And these other issues that we need to tackle will inherently solve the crime problem. You tackle the problem with parents not having good daycare for their kids. We tackle the problem of having an educational system that the kids can be well partaken of. These things will take care of the crime problem. But to think having a bunch of police locking people up is going to solve crime, it's wishful thinking. And you know how we know it's wishful thinking? Because that is all we have ever done. That is all we have ever done. I mean, it's time for us to think out of the box, and that's why we need new people. Ray, thank you so kindly. I hope you get better. Hope to see you at 3 o'clock if you are
thank you.
if you're around. Take care, brother. Let's go to
thank you,
Johnny.
brother.
Come on in. Thank you, brother. Let's go to Johnny, Mayor of Politics Done Right.
Well, maybe on a lighter note, I'm not sure how light it's going to be when you think about the implications. I loved Magic Jack's opening words of wisdom this morning when he maybe wittingly or unwittingly tied with his words. He said, what was his words? He said, the agents of chaos have taken control, right?
Yes.
Agents of chaos have taken control. And then you immediately went to, and I did the same thing. I thought of Get Smart, the TV series in the 60s, a comedy.
That was Howard who did that.
Right. The agency that Maxwell Smart worked for was called Control, Control. And
Yes. Yes.
Control. So when you say the agents of chaos, the other agency, KHOS, that was not an acronym either. It was just their name. So the agents of chaos, and chaos right now in 2023 United States of America are white nationalists, and they have taken control of our police departments, so that when I witness a neighbor who may be assembling assault weapons and stuff, I can't call the local police. Why? Because I don't know who I'm talking to anymore.
Exactly right. I mean, a lot of people don't see. I always recount the story about coming to KPFT at the studio with a friend of mine and a police officer coming next to me, and my buddy's a white guy, and he was out there waving at the cop and kind of, and I'm like straight as an arrow in my car, and he just couldn't. He doesn't quite. I explained to him the other day, look, you and I have two different views of who these guys are. and I mean any cop. Look at what they did to the kid in Georgia. It is amazing. But anyhow, I want to welcome Peggy Lopez is in the house, as well as Eric Hayes in the house. Guys, thank you for being here and having a healthy conversation in the chat. In a chat room. Anyway, Johnny, I gotta tell you, give me a 15-second closer.
Oh, only 15 seconds. Okay, only the smart guys get that amount, huh? Okay,
yes.
So John Whitmire, problematic, not because he's got Mayor Tootsie's last name, but because of his intent. And you can see his intent by his lack of substance in his TV ads. His TV ads go back, I said this once before to you, and I'll say it again, and someone alluded to it before, today, in your show, that he goes back to when he had hair and he had his little baby with him, and now he's running for office because of something.
And he used the baby as a prop. Hey, Johnny, I got to throw you off for a second here because I want to mention something. All right. Hey, guys, look, I really wanted to touch on the Medicare Advantage with the letter that I got. I may read it tomorrow, but just in case I forget to do that in the next newsletter, please go to our newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. That letter from the person who used to sell Medicare Advantage is of utmost importance that you read. He was on it. He sold it. Now he no longer sells it. I want to throw this to the studio real quickly. Let's go to El Senor Reynolds. Talk to me, brother. Let's close this baby out so I can give Neil a final word.
Well, just another fine show here, Egberto. Lots of iPhone action this morning. You didn't even get to...
I'm Agent 86.
No, you're not.
I heard that.
No, you're not either. All right, he threw me off. Jack, go back to your corner. All right. Now, another fine show, Egberto. Lots of phone action today. I want to remind folks that our lineup has changed in the morning. This morning, we're going to have Clint Broussard step in for the Great Wide Open is what they're calling this show, 9:30 till noon. He'll be in today and tomorrow. Then Friday, it all comes apart.
It's all you, brother. Yeah. It's all you.
It's all
right.
Gonna come apart then. So, Jack, what's your wisdom?
10 seconds, Jack.
Harm reduction. Harm reduction is what we need to do to get things going right again. Take care of the people.
Thank you, brother. Neil, you got 20 seconds to close out.
Great. Thank you for all the great callers today. Ask your elected officials what they're doing to generate turnout, a culture of voting. They have the resources to do it. And also my project, the Houston Democracy Project, we're talking about municipal politics. Google it, the Houston Democracy Project. You'll find it.
Thank you so kindly, folks. Thank you all callers. Thank you our studio, Harold Reynolds, Jack Van Beber. Thank you callers. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
You're listening